Hey folks, welcome to the channel and welcome to my very expensive hole in the ground. In this video, we are actually going to be talking about pool cleaning and specifically pool robots. And we're going to be talking about this one from Smorobot. Now this is actually the second robot of theirs I've owned. And I'm going to talk about that one as well. And I'm going to make some recommendations so you can make an informed decision about buying a robot for your pool. Now, I have had several other pools over the years, so we're going to talk about my previous experience, my experience with this one, and at the very end of the video, I'm going to go over all the pros and cons of this robot so you can make an informed decision for yourself if this is the right thing for you. Now, the first question is, why on earth do you actually need a pool robot? And I'll show you why. This is why. When I built this thing last summer, I didn't take down any of my trees, and I actually got asked if I was going to be taking down some of these trees because of the leaf litter, and I'm not taking down trees. I love my trees, but my trees make a mess of the pool. What the pool robots do is they go in the pool and they sweep up everything in your pool. Now, the robot that this pool came with was actually not a robot, it was a vacuum. Let me show you it. Now, this is the vacuum, and this is where it lives inside the storage locker in my side yard. Now, the reason it's back here is because even though this thing came with the pool and I paid a lot of money for it, more than that other robot, I don't like it. Now this one, as you can see, it has a large hose and it connects to the suction side of my filtration system, which means it sucks all the debris up that hose and it gets stuck in my filter, or more specifically, that little basket right there. Now I did add an inline filter here that catches debris, and I do have to clear that out once in a while, but this thing actually doesn't do a very thorough job. It does pick up all the debris, but it doesn't do any scrubbing or sweeping. And that's where these robots really come in handy. You notice that big scrubber on the front, that actually scrubs the walls and the floor of your pool, and that does a lot to keep your pool clean and keep algae growth down to a minimum. Now I mentioned before that this is actually the second robot that I've had from Smorobot, and the reason it's the second one is not because the other one bad, it's because the other went good. The other one was the Tank. Looks almost exactly the same as this, but it's actually designed for a really large pool, has a very large battery on board, and I used it in my above ground pool and it was drastically overkill, but I loved it. And there is a complete video on that one online, so a lot of the features of that one came across to this one. Now the reason I don't have it anymore is because while I was building this pool, I actually gifted it to my parents, and they've been using it in their pool, and I'm not getting it back. They love that thing. If you actually go in that video, you will notice that I did test it in both my above ground pool and the in-ground pool. And the reason I'm talking about it is because all the scrub brushes are the same. In that video, you actually notice in their pool, the water looks clear but dusty, if that's the best way to put it. And that's because they have a PebbleTech pool, and there was stuff that had gotten settled inside the texture of the pool, and this was actually pulling it out. Their pool sweep, which they've been running for years, didn't do that. So they actually ran this thing several times to the pool with the filters going, and their pool is now cleaner than it's ever been before. Now, I'm sure you've noticed by now, this is not a very big pool, and that's why this is a better robot for this pool, and this is still overkill. This thing could do a pool 4 to 5 times the size of this thing. So let's get into what this thing is, how it works, and then we're gonna throw it in the pool so you can check out the cleaning. If you notice, there's already some debris in the pool, and that's from those trees. We just had a good rain, so more stuff blew in. So let's get this thing in the water. So getting it in the water is really simple. It doesn't have any wires, it doesn't have any apps, it doesn't have anything you have to do other than just charge it up. So here on the side, there's a little waterproof charging port. It unscrews to keep it watertight. And then you've got your charger. I've already charged this thing up. If you can see kind of that it's already wet, and I'll show you the debris basin here. This is where it catches all the stuff. There's stuff in it because I've actually been using this thing. I don't just throw stuff up on the channel. I always test things out first. So this thing has been thoroughly used in my pool already, but I've recharged it and we're gonna get it in the water. Now there's 2 settings on this thing. There's a power switch. You've got off, S, and F. S is the standard clean, that does the walls first and then the floor, and then F is the floor clean, and that's where it only does the bottom of the pool if you're having to pick up debris. Now we're gonna do the standard, which is the full clean, so we're gonna flip it over to S, and you'll see the lights come on here. It takes it a second to boot up, and the lights will change color. Once it is green and yellow, it's ready to go in the drink. All right, so we got those green and yellow lights. Let's throw it in the water. Now, one thing that the instructions do tell you to do is to keep it level and keep it still. The other thing I've noticed is if you turn it on and walk away, occasionally it just starts trying to drive across your backyard. So you do want to make sure you throw it right in the pool. Before you throw it in, make sure that charging port is tightened all the way down so it's nice and watertight. Then we're just going to put it in the water here. And you do want to submerge it to make sure all the bubbles come out of it. And then let her sink. Once it settles all the way down to the bottom, it takes it a minute or 2 to calibrate, and then it just starts the cleaning process. Now, all my pool videos have been really well known for their underwater shots. And as you can tell by the wet pool deck, it just rained and my pool is like 65 degrees. I am not getting in there, even with a wetsuit and scuba gear. I don't feel like getting cold today, so I'm gonna be throwing the underwater drone in and getting some footage with that, as well as some GoPro footage. Now, like it showed when we were powering it on, there are two different modes for cleaning your pool. And what the mode it's in right now is the floor cleaning mode. And what it does here is it grids out the pool and it goes across the pool. It'll detect when it's hit a wall, and then it will correct itself and go back the other way. Now, in my situation, my pool is not a rectangular pool, so it can't really do a perfect grid. It kind of zigzags back and forth around the pool. But because of the way it's set up and how it corrects after each path, it still does cover the entire bottom of the pool. It's just not in a perfect grid just because of the actual shape of my pool. Now this mode here is the second mode that it has, and this is when it cleans the entire pool. And the way this one works is when it starts out by cleaning the walls first. So it will drive until it detects a wall, and then it goes vertical. It uses that little propeller on the top of it that pulls all the water through to suction itself to the side of the pool. And then it starts going up and down the sides. When it reaches the top, what it does is it gets just above the water line, and it goes up and down a little bit and scrubs your tile line. Then it recorrects and it comes back down. Every time it does a path, it turns a little bit, so it gradually works its way entirely around the pool. Now, one thing I was worried about was I do have jets and I do have a pool light. It didn't have any problems going over those things, except for when my jets were on. If my jets were on in full power, it would blow it off the wall and it would fall back to the bottom. So if you have your jets on, you do want to turn it off before you throw this thing in the pool. Now this is another convenient thing with this one. I've had some other ones with different interesting ways of getting them out of the pool. I had one that had a little string and a buoy and you were supposed to grab that, but sometimes it would end in the middle of the pool. Sometimes it would get tangled on stuff. It would tie itself in knots. I've had other ones that had no way to get out and you had to pull it up by the cord, which I don't really like. What this one does is when the battery gets low, it automatically senses an edge and parks itself there, which is what it's done here. And it came with this little hook that you just put on the end of your pool pole. All you do is just throw it on in there, hook the little handle on top, and up she comes. Now, the one tip that I've got for this is when you get up to the surface, don't just pull it straight out. Hold it there for a second, let the water drain, and then pull it out. The nice thing is you can pull it out by the handle. You never actually have to bend down and pick up the weight. And I'm getting old, so that's nice. So now that we got out of the pool, we just got to get all this stuff out of it. So like I kind of shown before, there's this debris basket. We pull it out, and you can see all the stuff that we just got off that quick run here. And that's a lot of stuff. Those are my trees. They're the gifts that keep on giving, but I'm not getting rid of them. So this thing, we're just gonna knock this stuff out, put it right back in, and we can charge it back up and run it again. Okay, so we showed you the running of this thing. I pointed out some of the things I like about it, but let's go over the real pros and cons, because with everything there are pros and there are definite cons to anything. And I like to go over all of them so you can make an informed decision. Now, a lot of the pros with this thing are the same as the pros that I showed in the tank video, because it's kind of the same robot, just for a smaller size pool. But let's go over those again. This thing does a very thorough job cleaning. It spends a lot of time on your pool and it actually scrubs. I've seen it remove algae, I've seen it remove dirt with the big scrub brush, and that's great. One of the concerns I had, but we've now tested it for almost 2 years in my parents' pool, is the longevity of this brush and it brushing against that texture of the pool and wearing down. They have a PebbleTech pool and it's pretty rough. It trashes bathing suits and they've seen no degradation in their roller, which I'm really surprised in. But what is nice is this company's been around for a long time and they have a big line of stuff so you can get replacement parts. So there will be service for these things if something does go wrong. And speaking of that scrubbing, being able to scrub the tile line is really nice. A lot of the other pool robots that I've played around with over the years don't do the tile line, so therefore you get everything on the bottom, it brushes stuff up, but then it clings to the tile line and now you got to go brush it and that falls back to the bottom, so it's a pain. So this thing does a really thorough job getting everything. It's also not that big and not that heavy compared to a lot of the other ones I've used. I had another one on the channel which I actually took down because I had such a bad experience with it that weighed easily double what this thing weighs, and it was a total pain to move around, and it had a wire and a cable and a base station, and it was a lot of hassle for what it was. This all makes this thing very convenient. So now let's move into the cons, and a lot of the cons on this thing are more just things to be aware of to see if it'll fit your needs. The first thing that I ran into with this was the battery charger. I don't understand why you'd make something that's meant to go in the pool and live outside and then provide a battery charger that's not waterproof, or at least weatherproof. I understand they have to have the cap on there for pressure, but the actual charger it comes with, I can't leave outside. And typically I want to just leave this thing with my pool equipment in my side yard, but I can't leave the charger out. And as you can see, it's been raining. I had to move it inside and charge it last night in the garage, which was kind of a bummer, but just something to be aware of, that you can't just leave it outside charging. You're gonna have to move it into a shed or into your garage. The next thing I ran into is I do have a corner on my pool that has a very tight radius, and it's tight enough that this brush can't get all the way into it. Now, I actually knew that when I was building the pool, but it's how I wanted that corner. I can't brush it with a manual brush that well either. I have to get in there on the side and do it. So it is kind of a pain. That's my fault design-wise, but just be aware that if you have any really tight radius corners, it might not be able to get all the way into that corner and get all the surface scrubbed. It will still vacuum, but it's not gonna actually get the scrubber up against the wall of the pool. Now, the manufacturer says that this thing does not climb stairs, and it doesn't climb stairs well, but it will climb stairs. I have stairs in my pool, and I have a Baja step. So that's something to be aware of, is that I have a Baja step, which is another several feet of flat pool bottom that I'd like to have cleaned, but this thing shouldn't be able to get up there. I have seen it get up there, but it's not supposed to be able to get up there. So if you have large Baja steps, don't count on this thing getting up on top of the Baja step and cleaning. You probably want to grab your brush, sweep everything into the bottom of the pool, and let it get it down there. Now, with all these things, people always ask about battery life, and this thing can clean the pool for, it's like 2.5 hours, somewhere around there, which is more than enough to clean my pool. But if you have a pool sweep, which is built into your pool filter, you can just leave the thing in there and let it run nonstop. Now, that does have the con of all the hoses, and they're much more expensive, but this, every time you run it, you have to fish it out and charge it. But I only really run this thing like once a week or so it's not that big of a deal. Now, I did notice on their website, they do have one that is supposed to be able to run for a week. And what it does, it's got a massive battery in it, and it runs once every day or so. So if that's something you want, that is an option. It's just not this one, but it is on their website. I'll have a link for it. It looked pretty cool to me. Now, another pro, and kind of a con, but also a pro, I don't know what you want to call it, is how you retrieve this thing out of the pool. Now, my pool sweep has a handle on it, but you can also tow it up by the hose. But when it's the wintertime, it means you're putting your hands in 50-degree water, and that's no fun. With this thing, you get it out with your pool pole. It does weigh a lot with all that water in it, but like I showed when I pulled the thing out of the pool, it doesn't really matter, because what I do is I pull it up to the surface, I let it drain, and then I pull it out without having to bend over. A lot of my other ones, I had to bend over, and I don't know, I'm old or lazy or everything hurts now. I've been crouching for too long and I'm hurting right now. So having the pool pole is nice, but just be aware these things don't weigh nothing. They do weigh a few pounds, so you will have to move it around from time to time. So hey, I hope this video helped you out. I hope it helped you make an informed decision about whether a pool robot like this is what you'd like to do for your pool cleaning options. Now, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I put this in last summer, and I'm gonna have a whole video coming out on the process of building a pool. So if you'd like to get more information about the process of building a pool, how much it cost, how we did it, who we contracted with, and that whole process, I will have a video coming up soon, as well as some new tips and tricks that I've learned, because this is a saltwater pool, so there's some new things that I've been learning with that as well that I'm going to share with you. So if that stuff interests you, please subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna have that stuff coming out real soon. If you have any questions about pools, pool robots, pool cleaning, or anything else DIY, leave me a comment down below, and I'd be happy to come on board and answer your question. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and of course, thanks for watching.